Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. I got a couple of programming notes just right here at the top. Unfortunately, one of Crystal's youngest daughters is in the hospital today. We are wishing her absolutely the best. Another programming note. It's been quite a personal just mess here on Breaking Points. My grandfather died a couple of days ago. I am actually getting married in a couple of days on Saturday, so I'm going to be out for the rest of the week. Luckily, we have our very own Ryan Grimm and Emily Jashinsky who are stepping up to the plate. Ryan, thank you for bailing us out of these multiple personal crises that we face here on Breaking Points. we really have never been more thankful to have you, man. So thank you both.
Glad to be here. Wishing Crystal's family well.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, we all are. We're all thinking about her this morning. We'll keep everybody updated on that as well. So we have a couple of things, major things, obviously, to react to this morning, Ryan. We've got the RNC, the first day yesterday. The big news that Crystal brought everybody yesterday is that Donald Trump has chosen Senator JD Vance of Ohio as his running mate. We're going to run through some of the details of that announcement, and then we're going to bring in Emily Jashinsky from the RNC to get her reaction. Ryan and I are then going to interview Lieutenant Tim McMillan. He's the co-founder of Debrief Media. Some of you may know him, but for our purposes, he actually is former law enforcement who worked multiple presidential protection details, and he's going to go over some more stunning details that we are learning about the failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and more importantly, the failed Secret Service and local law enforcement response. The things that we are finding out now are just absolutely shocking, including that the gunman was known to law enforcement with the picture some 30 minutes before the shooting, and that the building that he was in during the shooting apparently had Secret Service snipers inside of it along with law enforcement. It doesn't get more of a failure than that. We're going to talk a little bit about the polls. We're going to talk about some of the reaction anticipated of the RNC, where Donald Trump stands today. And then also, Ryan, this will be great for you and I to discuss, is the DNC and their official decision to try and nominate Joe Biden officially, virtually before the convention to stay any more conversation about whether he should stay in the race. We're also going to talk about Joe Biden giving another interview yesterday on NBC News with Lester Holt. We have a couple of clips from that. He also appeared on a YouTube channel, on Complex, actually, for YouTubers who are out there, and made some claims about Israel and Palestine, which certainly bear scrutiny. RFK Jr., who, by the way, Emily will have an interview with sometime later today, will be getting Secret Service protection. We're going to talk about that. And then finally, the documents case against Trump was officially dismissed by the judge. Massive, massive victory, legal victory for him. We're going to talk to our legal friend Bradley Moss about it. Now, look, here's the thing about Bradley. We all know he has an opinion, but on the facts of the matter, he actually can be a pretty objective legal analyst whenever he wants to be. So we're going to push him a little bit on that. So let's go ahead and start, with the RNC. By the way, we finally got our very first view of Donald Trump after that failed assassination attempt. Guys, let's go ahead and roll some of this video that we can see. Ryan, you can see he's got a large piece of, it's like gauze and bandage that is on his right ear, which he said was pierced by a bullet. Obviously a very big bandage, and it's a living reminder of the assassination attempt that was just a couple of days ago. Here we have JD Vance officially being nominated, and I think it's by acclamation as the vice presidential nominee for the Republican Party while he was standing with the Ohio delegation. Just to go a little bit more into it, guys, let's go ahead and put this next one up on the screen. The official Truth Social announcement that from Donald Trump yesterday. After lengthy deliberation and thought, considering the tremendous talents of many others, I have decided that the person best suited to assume the position of vice president is Senator JD Vance of the great state of Ohio. JD honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State, summa cum laude, Yale, blah, blah, blah. Hillbilly Elegy became a bestseller and a movie. It championed the hardworking men and women of our country. JD has had a successful business career in technology and finance, and now during the campaign will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliantly for, the American workers and farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and far beyond. So, as you know, Ryan, with those 3 states that he listed, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, literally the must-win states there for Donald Trump. The initial response so far from the Biden campaign and from many critics of Vance have been about some of his past comments. So before we get your thoughts, I just wanted to throw to this interview where he addressed some of that last night with Sean Hannity of Fox News. Let's get to it.
If you go back to what I thought in 2016, another thing that was going on, Sean, is I bought into the media's lies and distortions. I bought into this idea that somehow he was going to be so different, a terrible threat to democracy. It was a joke. Joe Biden is the one who's trying to throw his political opposition in jail. Joe Biden is the one who's trying to undermine American law and order. President Trump did a really good job. And I actually think it's a good thing when you see somebody, you were wrong about him, you ought to admit the mistake and admit that you were wrong. Sean, I got to say, Donald Trump is as healthy as anybody I've ever met. I tell him all the time, he's got ridiculous genes. I plan to be a very good vice president for Donald Trump for 4 years.
Interesting there, Ryan. So yeah, give us your reaction. What do you think?
Well, the most important thing, of course, is that this is what I predicted, right? But the reason that people didn't think that this was going to happen is that he doesn't, quote unquote, bring anything to the ticket. You know, just politically speaking, you know, Ohio's already in the bag for Republicans. He doesn't check any diversity boxes other than having a beard. And so people are like, why do that? Especially when, then you lose a major Trump supporter in the Senate, and maybe DeWine appoints Vivek, but maybe not. Maybe he appoints some.
Almost certainly
DeWine.
will not. Yeah.
Almost certainly will not. We'll appoint like a DeWine-like figure.
Yeah.
And so the question was always, well, why would he do that? It just doesn't add anything to the race. And maybe I was wrong when I predicted, and the only reason that the prediction came true is that Trump is now so confident in the polling that he doesn't feel like he actually needs a boost in the election. And what he needs is help governing and help pushing the kind of MAGA agenda forward. And as you saw in that statement that he put out, Trump loves credentials. It's one of the funniest contradictions about Trump. Yeah. He just absolutely runs against all the elites, but the fact that he was summa cum laude at Yale kind of makes it into the Truth Social post about his upcoming vice presidential nominee. So it really does feel like him leaning into his base and showing an extraordinary amount of confidence that either Joe Biden is going to stay on the ticket and Trump is going to handle him easily, or he's going to get replaced by Kamala. And as he said in that golf course video, he's like, she's practically even worse. Right. So that's what I read from it.
I think you're right. Breaking Points viewers will know, if you want to go roll the tape from a few months ago, I said, I don't think that Trump will pick JD. And this was pre-assassination attempt, obviously. Right. But I said, I don't think he will.
And all that.
Yeah, I said, I don't think he will pick JD unless he is totally confident of victory. And it's like, well, I actually saw your analysis on that in the Snap reaction. I totally agreed with it. And look, full disclosure, I have known JD Vance on a personal level for probably almost 8 years now. So people should take everything I say with a grain of salt. I do think it's important to put that out there.
I might have even known him longer. You want to hear my funny JD story?
Yeah, go for it.
So as he was writing his book, and before it had even been published, he reached out to, or somehow he got in touch with Ariana Huffington, who was my boss at the time at the Huffington Post, because he wanted help, promoting the book. And we ended up, excerpting a copy of it. And Ariana connected me with him and said, who's great at book promotion? Ryan. Talk to Ryan.
That's true.
So JD and I talked before the book came out, and I gave him some little advice here and there. And it's funny thinking back on the advice that I gave him. One of the things was, like, every event that you go to, make sure you collect all the emails of the people that like go to those events. And of course we'll run an excerpt of the book. It sounds really interesting. Yeah. And thinking of like going from collecting 30 emails at a Barnes and Noble in Columbus, Ohio, to being the vice presidential nominee is quite something.
I'll tell you, it is personally surreal and weird, to kind of see something. It's something that you imagine in a movie, then you see him get officially acclaimed. It is interesting, I think, for a couple of reasons. The big difference is that, so look, and this was Crystal's point. She was like, Trump has never given any consideration to governing. So why should we believe that he's going to care this time around. Honestly, I think that's a fair criticism. And that is one where I also was frankly worried. I was like, oh, well, here we go. We're going to get Tim Scott or Doug Burgum or, any of these other just box checkers. Or Doug is a guy who brings in a lot of money. Tim Scott, I think we all know what that one is because Trump just loves the fake diversity. For Rubio, it was the same thing. Oh, he speaks Spanish as if, this is the funny thing. Pence won, 10 million more votes in 2020 and flipped multiple Hispanic counties in South Texas. I don't remember anybody saying, oh, well, if only Mike Pence had spoken Spanish, then all these Hispanics would have voted for him. So it's a stupid way of thinking about how minority voters actually vote. But regardless, I can only say that from my knowledge of the conservative movement and others, this is a pick of a person who genuinely does care about a lot of the purported things that Trump also has ran on in the past. So if we talk about immigration, if we talk about industrial policy, if we talk about foreign policy. Now, I will say on foreign policy, I'm going to be totally honest. It is a little bit more mixed than a lot of people may know. JD is very anti-aid to Ukraine. He's I would say, pretty similar in my view about that conflict. Also about having to reorient U.S. foreign policy towards China, and also about the way that we should approach, let's say the military-industrial complex and all of that. That said, I'm going to be totally upfront here and say that he certainly has a very different opinion, I think, on Israel-Palestine, that conflict as well. I have never spoken to him about it, just in case anybody wants me to know, but he did talk a little bit about in his interview yesterday. So I won't claim that he is some, 100% anti-war candidate, but he is certainly, I would say, different than Lindsey Graham or any traditional doctrinaire Republican. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that's right. People might see his Ukraine policy and think for a second that, oh, maybe he's going to be different than Washington, the Washington consensus when it comes to Israel-Palestine. But no, that's not really the case. I think Crystal's point is an interesting one about how Trump, I'll believe it when I see it, and with Trump's interest in governing. But I think one way to think about it is that, whether or not you think that there was a deep state pushback and conspiracy to undermine and destroy Donald Trump, whether you believe that or not isn't the point. Donald Trump very much believes that.
Right.
And so you don't have to believe that Trump has all of a sudden gotten an interest in governing, for the sake of governing because he wants to lift up all people or anything like that. All you have to believe is that Trump thinks that he was not surrounded with the kind of people that were loyal to him and that would defend him in his battle, with this deep state. And I think he feels like JD Vance is one of those people. And so whether that leads to governing or not, I think for Trump is completely beside the point. But it does show that he's going to, kind of approach this, what he sees as this internal conflict, with more seriousness than he did last time.
That's a great point, and that is another way where you can both believe in Trump's narcissism and his own personal interest, and also project it. Yeah, and I've interviewed Donald Trump 5 times, I think, in the Oval Office. And what is the number one gripe that he would always have? These people are not loyal to me. I remember interviewing him immediately after the entire Jeff Sessions bit, and actually, I think I pressed him, or maybe it was Jared Kushner, in either one of these interviews, and I was like, guys, what are we doing here? Jeff Sessions, it was preempted Trumpism before Trump. This guy is the OG immigration hawk, on all of these different policy issues, a lot more skeptical on foreign policy. And they're like, yeah, well, he wasn't loyal, on the Mueller investigation. But here is where you can actually fuse kind of the two things, as you said. And you can have somebody who's deeply skeptical of the federal bureaucracy, of the intelligence community, of a lot of the other people who are, quote, out to get Trump. And look, whether they're out to get him from a lawful perspective or not, which I do think is true, I think it is empirical that there is obviously an ideology that pervades people who work in the United States government. And he has said, JD, very openly and clearly, he's like, look, we need to fire all these people and get rid of them. All Trump hears is, oh, the people who tried to get me, we're going to fire them. So those are not necessarily, incompatible, I guess is one way to say it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like their interests align there.
Right.
And for Trump, the fact that he's loyal and they have the same enemies is enough.
Right. Good point.
And JD has shown that he'll just debase. Like debase is maybe a little bit unfair. He's done such a 180 on Trump that he has the zeal of the converted.
He certainly does. And listen, I again will say, no one can ever know anyone's heart. Here's what he said the same in interviews. I'll tell you on a personal level, if you talk to him without the cameras rolling, he would tell you the same thing. He's like, I think I was wrong. I believed a lot of these media lies. His own personal, quote unquote conversion on a lot of, not even necessarily issues, but of Trump himself as this figure in the Republican Party who is both speaking to a lot of the concerns, but itself is the vehicle through which to get some of the things done for the voters, let's say that he represents in Ohio and others. I think it is genuine. That is my opinion, but you can say what you want. Go ahead. Yeah.
What we see now may be his genuine opinion, and what we saw before may be what he was telling to the audience that was going to buy his books. So we always assume that the thing you're saying first is genuine, and then you switch to the artificial position. He might have gone artificial to genuine.
I don't know. I think he was being real at the time too.
Or it could have been real on both. Also, it doesn't matter because it's politics.
Brian, as you and I both know, back in 2016, okay, it was 8 years ago. I tweeted this morning. I go, honestly, if you're the same person you were 8 years ago, you're an idiot. It's like you're actually an idiot. That means that you don't think about anything. I'm certainly not the same person I was 8 years ago. Let's put this up there on the screen because this is probably, for our purposes on this show, what is going to be one of the more undercovered aspects of JD Vance as the pick. People will recall I was talking about here on the show about how the mega donors specifically in the financial sector have been very against JD Vance. So this is from the Financial Times. They say, why the rise of JD Vance in Trump world divides U.S. business. Some deal makers detect an anti-corporate agenda in the populist ideology of the vice presidential contender. They talk specifically about how Vance has been open to corporate tax raise hikes, how he walked the UAW picket line, Ryan, how he praised Lena Khan, the FTC chair under the Biden administration. I can tell you at a personal level, I was at a speech that he gave some 3-4 days ago, and in it, he specifically was castigating the Wall Street Journal editorial board being pro-corporate and shouting out organizations in the conservative movement who are pro-industrial policy and who have actually been lobbying hard to raise the corporate tax rate come 2025. Now, I'm not going to sit here and claim that JD Vance is a leftist. However, he wasn't in Congress in 2017. I don't believe that I know for a fact there are at least some aspects of the TCJA 2017 bill that he would not support necessarily. He's been on the record about child tax credits or about redistributive programs, not again in the way that some leftists would want. He certainly is for work requirements and other things, but not ideologically a Ron Johnson or a Rand Paul or even a Mitch McConnell, I guess is one way would put it. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, the Lena Khan point is an amazing one, and that you see my cat just knocked over my.
We love black cats here on the show. Yeah.
And there's another one too walking around here somewhere. So the Lena Khan question is an amazing one. Now I was talking to a conservative movement source yesterday about this kind of out of the box question of, is there a world in which he would actually keep Lena Khan as chair of FTC? And she said, you know what, if it were up to him, I could see it. Like you could actually imagine JD Vance kind of flipping the script and saying, you know what, Lena Khan might not be my first choice, but like she has done, I think his exact quote was, she's done a pretty good job. And it would show, having her in there would be a symbol of the way that the kind of two sides have come together, at least on populist antitrust policy. Right. And the question though becomes, what does Trump think? Trump's donors are much less inclined and much more inclined to slide with the Wall Street Journal editorial board, and much will depend on who becomes chief of staff. Was her argument?
Yes, you are exactly right, Ryan. We actually have Emily on standby, waiting to get her in here. So let's get her reaction. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show. Help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.